Okay, yes, we're hitting the ground running, which I've said a couple of times now. Keep repeating yourself. Yes. But that's exactly what we're going to do because there's so much to talk about. And the state of the nation is one that gives a lot of people grave concern because they look at what is happening with our economy, and they look at what is happening with security, or if you want to call it insecurity in the land. There is a spate of attack almost on a daily basis in the northeast of Nigeria. There is concern that this might spread to other parts of the country, but we're hoping that will not be the case. But there is a need to have conversation about this, to understand what is the essence of this, beyond the issue of security details and so on and so forth. Our national polity is getting heated up by virtue of the fact that election is just around the corner. So politicians sometimes are being accused of not really focusing on the issue of security, of not even showing enough interest, because we're talking of approaching over 250 days of our girls being gone, and all the politicians are not even talking about it. This is not about PDP. This is about politicians across the board that are not addressing the issue of our girls being gone, except the Bring Back Our Girls campaign group who have been labeled one political party or the other. Well, having said all of that, we have a group of very intelligent people to have this conversation with us and to help us break it down and bundle it, and let's begin to look for solutions. I will start by introducing from my left-hand side, Professor Femi Ajayi, who's of the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. Good morning, Prof. Welcome.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
And on my right-hand side, the one we call a member of the family here, and that's Oscar Ondiwe, who's a social commentator and wears a number of other hats apart from the one he's got on his head now. So, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much, Kyle.
Let me start with you. When you look at the way I started, I could see you nodding and shaking your head somewhere in between all of what I'm saying. Looking at the state of the nation, politics, economy, security or insecurity, what's your thoughts? This is the first weekend of December. What's your thought?
Thank you very much, Coyote. I have a problem. My problem is I get passionate about these things and I ask myself why. Because it seems everybody else is enjoying it, you know. Some guy, I remember one time, I think I committed a traffic offense. And I got arrested.
You actually did?
I did.
And you acknowledge the fact that you committed
I'm honest. I committed an offense. I was arrested by a LASMA man. I decided not to protest, but I said I'll make a plea to whosoever is the head of LASMA. And I was taken to that office. Of course, they demanded for tax clearance and all of that. But I was insisting on the amount of money I was supposed to pay. I'll never forget what Mr. Arabaman said to me. I said, my car broke down, but at the wrong place. And the man said, it's your fault. I said, but I didn't ask my car to break down. He said, no, that before your car breaks down, it must have been giving you signs, but you ignore. I'm bringing in this story to say where we are today, the signs have been there for years. And we've been building it up, ignoring it, and now the chicken has come home. This is the situation in the country. We have insecurity that we built. The insecurity in the north, there was a deliberate thing. It may be cultural, but a deliberate thing to under-educate the people. And then if you under-educate them, but they begin to see other lifestyles, and they do not have the education to compete with that lifestyle, they resort to what? The most sentimental thing, religion. But again, in that religion, they seek excitement.
I beg your pardon,
Yeah.
Oscar, I need to cut in here. Number one, you say they decide to under-educate them.
I use the word deliberately.
Who is
decide to under-educate? I'm talking the elites and those who had the power to educate their people.
Okay.
All over the world, you have 10% of the people who will pull the 90% up.
That's number one. Insinuating that this whole matter is a religious matter?
No, it's not. But that is the, what do you call it, the opium.
Yeah, but...
That's the opium. That is the easiest way to recruit anybody.
They're burning mosques as well, more than anywhere else.
Oh, yeah. And why are they doing
our Muslims?
But you know why they're doing that? But it's easy. You know why they're doing that? If those men will not agree with their own thinking about this religion, then you don't deserve to live. That's what's going on.
Okay, let me draw you back 1 second before I go to Prof. When you say that they decide to undereducate, how can anybody take a decision to undereducate Nigerians?
Okay, I'll tell you why. You know, have you ever bothered to check through the Ministry of Education, the staff strength of Ministry of Education since 1975? Look at it. All the parastatals under the Ministry of Education, call it the regulatory bodies for UBE, NBTE, all these people, check all those positions. And who are the people who have been the chief executives in those positions for years, from 1975 till date? Majority, I'm saying 95%, are my brothers from the North. How come that the education in the North still ranks low? And yet, all we preach, what do the politicians tell you? Oh, it's my turn to do what? To take care of you. So let's say they've actually believing in that. Are they taking care? Because the problem here is psychological. It's an ideology. And there's so many problems.
Okay, Professor, let's take it from where Oscar and you were just finished from, which is the area of education. Would you agree with him that they, whoever they are, the so-called elite, the 10% that has the new and everything that it takes to pull the 90% up, would you say that they intentionally or deliberately, to use his choice words as well, to undereducate Nigerians?
Thank you so much for that, for inviting me and for that statement. I would say it was a deliberate action of those who were there before that are supposed to educate these individuals. Remember that when the democracy came back, we saw some group of people from the North, even led by Shehu Shagari that time, accusing Nigeria of under-educating Nigerians. And just like he said, I alluded to that. 3 of them, I won't mention names, from the North that time, they had the key. And what they said that time was to actually see how they can deliberately stop the South from furthering their education, because that's the difference. That's why they are getting upper hand. And what did the people from the South do? That's how they start moving out from the country, thinking that they could stop them so they can do that. But what happened in the North? Lucky enough, I was serving in the North, even at Bama, where the problem happening now. And then there were some double actions that time, not to actually give the students real education needed. Religion is something that between you and your God. It's not something you have to impose on anybody. But what is going to give them their lifestyle in terms of the meal ticket is through this education. So it's to, I would believe it's deliberate action. In addition to that, the politicians, is kind of very, very disgusting. What is even happening today? You set a group of people to go and make some laws, some policies that will affect, that will increase the lifestyle of everybody in this country. And what we saw recently is just for them climbing fence because the gate was locked against them. What message are they sending to the people there? What are they telling these young people that it's okay for to disobey? For instance, you have your children who go to party at now or disco, and they came in and you lock the gate. So you are telling them that it's okay for you to jump the fence because I lock you out. These are the type of things.
You shouldn't blame them for jumping the fence. You should blame the police for locking the gate.
Regardless of whatever happened, they have no justification for them to jump the fence. They are lawmakers. They are supposed to actually obey laws, not breaking it. I believe that time when the gate was locked against them, the speaker was there also. Has so many options that can do. One, you can call the press conference and see this is what is happening. I mean, we are in a democracy, we are the rule of law.
You say, I'm sorry to interject. A lot of times I've had this argument over and over and over again with different caliber of people who are members of the National Assembly and not non-members of the National Assembly. The point is, you just had a few days before that incident, what happened in Ekiti, where 7 people sat and the remaining 18 or 19 people were not in there, and they were said to have been locked into that chamber by the police. That's an allegation. I don't know how true it is.
You know what? Most Nigerians, I think we are writing some scripts for this politician to follow. And it's a very wrong script. Whatever happened in Ekiti, happened in Ekiti.
And you think it can never happen at the National Assembly?
Let me finish with this narrow thing again.
Okay.
The gate was locked against them.
Yes.
That's okay. We locked it. Taiwan could have picked up everybody in that assembly. Hey, the chief security come and open this gate. He will open it. Why resorting to jumping over the fence?
You reckon that he could have called the chief
security?
He could have called, and the chief security will tell the police, will give the
man in charge, the person who is in charge of the National Assembly can pick up the phone. Regardless, 2 wrongs does never make a right. There is no way by you jumping the fence will actually say you are defending democracy. What are you defending?
Well, somebody made a statement that does 1 wrong make a right?
2 wrongs never make a right.
Yeah, that's true. But
1 wrong, that's the first thing they did.
That first one doesn't make a right.
It's a very wrong message they are sending to the people. That, you know, if anything is happening to you, the first thing you do is just disobey. Daddy, what are you doing upstairs? Is that part of your job? That is what these children will be asking. And today we are talking about this youth in this country. We are giving them a very wrong direction. And this is not how to actually have the future for this country. What is happening today, we are self to blame in terms of what the youth are doing. Look at Nigeria current Nigerian youth, maybe 45. What do they know? Either violence or fraud. Will you blame them for that? It's caused by this type of behavior of would-be legislatures to make law. So things are very wrong.
So one of such young men actually sent me a tweet saying that if his father was one of those jumping that fence, he would be proud of him. So the wrong message has gotten through to some young people who think it was okay for their parents to be climbing over fences, which I think is the most embarrassing thing that could happen to any parent. For your child to see you climbing over a fence.
And you say you're going to do that. What education, what orientation does he have different from that? Look at those who are currently the 40 or 45 years of age. They were born during the time of this military regime. And all they do is violence. And what do we know from the military when they occupy this democracy thing? Is fraud. So you won't think, I mean, we have some very serious challenges. Now election is coming now. And then see what is happening all around this place. And this is a very wrong message, and it's not even good for this country. And for the image of the nation also across the world. Nigeria always have a very bad image. You know, before democracy came back in 1999, it was very bad. And then the administration of Obasanjo tried to actually build up that image. But see where it is now, it's even worse than that period in time. So we have some serious challenge in this country.
Okay. Oscar, let me ask you this question. There have been suggestions that many of these elements in Boko Haram are not even Nigerians. Yeah. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah,
they seem to be able to just come in freely and go out as they like.
Yeah, that is expected. Number one is that our borders are very porous. By the time you get up north, you begin to just see, you don't even know when you've moved from Nigeria to Cameroon or when you've gone into Chad or Niger. You don't even know. It's just there, porous. Manned by nobody. Manned by nobody. So it is that bad. That's number one. Number two is that this religious war, the worst type of war in the world, has gone global. What is happening in Syria, what is happening in Iraq, is happening in Kenya, is happening in all these other places, they're all linked up. And it could happen here. So it's so easy, and it's already happening. We have the people who went